Hey everyone, welcome to the Mass Construction Show with today's guest, Mike Weber, Principal at Gaston Electrical. I'm your host, Joe Kelly, and this is a podcast about all things construction in Massachusetts and beyond. Today's show is brought to you by Central, commercial carpenters and supporters of our conversation. So today, folks, we're going to do a quick little short podcast here with Mike. He's got a little bit of breaking news, I guess we'll say. And I do too. A long time ago, I thought a lot about putting out an email that I would call Mass Construction Network. It would be either quarterly or monthly, but I wanted to make sure I did it right. So waited a long time to do it. And now a few things have kind of forced my hand here. One of them is Gaston and the project that they have put out that I'm excited about. And what this list will be is for folks that want to get information on lead times that we'll talk about today, things like permitting checklists. The 10th edition is coming into effect first quarter of this year. So what are those code changes that will affect you and the owners you work for? You want to provide that information to them. This week coming up, Boston Fire Department has an event on Wednesday. I think that people would want to know about that. So that's going to be in the email as well if you want to find out that information. Some fun stuff like cigar meetups or other events we might have. And last but certainly not least, Build Health International, who you heard when Jim and Sarah came on, is always looking for used building products, used tools that you could take from your job site that you were just going to put in a dumpster and put them to good use, building hospitals for people in developing nations. So that will be information that will be in there as well. So if that sounds interesting to you, please head to massconstruction.org. You'll see a tab that says Mass Construction Network. Sign up there and you will get this info in your inbox. All right. Thanks, Mike, for being patient there. Welcome to the Mass Construction Show.
Thanks for having me again, Joe. Good to be back.
Yeah. You're going to be unhappy, though. Bill's download numbers or listen numbers are higher than yours. He's like in the top 10. It must be prefab.
Yeah, that's what it is. I'm sure. Exactly. I was really early in the process too. I think I was one of your first guests, maybe. So yeah, I'll blame it on that.
Yes, and that actually does have a lot to do with it. You know, some of those early ones that people didn't, it hadn't really collected a decent audience yet. So, but I appreciate you hopping on early. That was great. So what I wanted to talk about today is you have a new little market outlook that has come out. You guys are calling it Gaston Pulse.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell people what's in there?
Yeah, sure. So, COVID kind of happened in multiple stages for the construction industry, right? Where we shut down and then, things got back to work in the city of Boston and Eastern Massachusetts. And, things kind of went as normal. And we didn't really see too much disruption in the supply chain, whether it be workforce or specifically, in this case, materials, until I would say probably the last 6 or 8 months. Things really started to be disrupted in our construction world. How do we get materials? I mean, anybody who's tried to buy a refrigerator these days or, an appliance or anything that needs a computer chip it's been really challenging. So over the last couple of months or more, I've been asked by our customers and partners basically that said, hey, how long to get this? And it's a continuous conversation. It's been something that I'm always talking about and writing emails about to, but it's individuals. Like, so you'd show me an email, I'd say, hey, the gear on this is 25 weeks. This is, and basically it got to be a lot. And the demand out there is really for, hey, we need a market update of how long will it take for me to get electrical supplies? Because that's where our expertise is. So we reached out to some partners and vendors, talked to, I have my name on this, but really the people in my office helped me put this together. And what we're publishing, and we intend to do it quarterly, is we call it the Pulse, and it's really just an overview of lead times and pricing. Right, so we started there, and if there's a demand for more information, we'll certainly add that as we go. So I implore anybody to reach out to us and me specifically if ideas or questions for things that may be additional to what's not in this quick 2-page. So really, what we put together is again a pulse of what the market is today. So as of right now, how long is it to get a switchboard? 80 weeks, right? Or maybe 90, or sometimes 70, depending on the manufacturer. And those types of numbers are really affecting our day-to-day lives and our businesses, and really affecting our job sites. So that's kind of what
Yeah,
we got today.
yeah. I mean, and I just automatically, my mind goes to these 8-10 week jobs, and if the equipment's taken 30 weeks, I mean, it's really going to blow these
Yeah,
projects out
I
of the
mean,
water.
100%. So what we're not seeing is 8 and 10 week jobs. We can get a lot of things in 8 and 10 weeks. What we cannot get are some light fixtures. We cannot get lighting controls. We cannot get specialty fire alarm devices. We cannot get switchgear. We cannot get a meter socket in 8 to 10 weeks. You need to plan your job, almost 30 weeks in advance in order to get some of those things. So
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up light fixtures, because the funny backstory on this is, I think 4 years ago now, we started talking
that's right.
about doing this, and you had put up a couple nice one-pagers that we handed out when we did the education,
Mm-hmm.
and said, hey, you PMs and supers sitting in this class learning about electrical systems, hey, here's some lead times just for you to have as a good, barometer to know what things take. And the big thing at that point was light fixtures.
Right.
I don't know if you remember, I could show it to you. You had a whole section on light fixtures, and then a small thing on the equipment. And
Yeah, right, exactly.
and now it's flipped, right?
Yes, it's flipped very much so. So light fixtures, although still challenging to get at times, are not our biggest problem right now. Our problem is switchgear. And it doesn't matter which manufacturer out of the major four that you go to, Siemens, ABB, Cutler, Hammer, or Square D. It is a constant battle on every single job to get switchgear. And I'm not just talking large pieces of switchboard that power entire, core shell buildings. I'm also talking about a panel board that you're adding to your 5,000 square foot fit out that you just need 42 circuits. That's all you need. Guess what? I can't get the breakers for that for 30 weeks. It's mind numbing how, how this has affected us. And on top of that, which is also in our kind of the pulse is what we'll call it, the market update, is some pricing and what the price has done specifically for copper and aluminum materials over the past call it a year, 8-10 months. So pricing itself for copper is we got to show you the COMEX chart in the publication that we have, but really the pricing for goods have gone up. I want to say, I'm going to read it because I'm forgetting off the top of my head. About 25% in 2020, and then another 25% in 2021. So that's for copper material. So if I just bought, 100 feet of wire in 2019, in 2020 that would have cost me 25% more, and in 2021 it would have cost me 25% on top of the 2020 price. It has since come down in 2022, about 12 to 15%. So overall, from that 2019 cost level, call it 35%-ish, we're up. Yeah. And it's kind of the world we're living in. So not only are we waiting longer to get some things, but we're also paying a lot more to get them as well. And that's kind of like, economics 101, things slow down when that happens, right?
Yes. No, for sure. But to that effect, have you started to see any stabilization yet? Not necessarily going in the other direction, but have you seen from either lead time or cost perspective things start to slow down?
Sure. I would say on the copper and aluminum, on the copper side specifically, there's been some stabilization, and we don't anticipate kind of on a macro level that copper pricing will increase very much in the next quarter. Same with aluminum, where it is today. I'm not. If I was really good at forecasting this stuff, I wouldn't be a contractor. I'd be a futures trader and be really rich. But but again, everyone we talk to says, for the most part, pricing is going to about for copper and aluminum products be stable for the next quarter. That said, Most manufacturers for switchgear are anticipating a 4 to 10% increase in Q1 of 2023. Most lighting manufacturers are anticipating another 5 to 10% increase on their products in Q1 of 23. So although the copper wire and the aluminum wire may be level, the finished components of lights and switchgear, those prices are still going to be going up next year.
Yeah, it's interesting because it seems like there's two things at play. There's like the demand within the construction industry, the manufacturing issues for all the components, but then there's the overlay of just the general economic inflation that's happening. Even if there's no problem getting some particular product, that product is still going up just from general overall economic inflation.
You nailed it, Joe. I mean, it's been a long time since I studied economics in college, but I did a long time ago, and you just named three main things plus a labor shortage, which is kind of part of what you said in the manufacturing world. Like, you can't get people to run the plants, they can't get products to finish their products, and their prices are somewhat increasing or at least fluctuating heavily. And I talk about how the pricing for copper and aluminum products is sticky, so they're sticky down. So when the COMEX goes up, cost of my wire almost immediately goes up the same. When the COMEX goes down, the cost of my wire doesn't go down quite as fast. It's called sticky down, right? So all those things get together. Again, I'm not an economist, but it does tell me that things probably, and the inflation rate, all the things that we're looking at on as an economy. Borrowing money is more expensive and things of that nature. You throw all those in the same bucket, and we'll tell you that developers are probably a little skittish right now.
I like that phrase. What do you call it? Sticky down?
Sticky down, yeah.
Sticky down, because it doesn't slide. And that's nothing to say of, excuse me. Nothing to say of, thank you. A conversation I was having today with someone in the ductwork world, and they watch closely the cost of stainless, but in particular, he was referring to nickel being under a lot of pressure, getting a little better. But what I didn't know was the Ukraine is the third largest producer of nickel.
Sure.
So then you have that element weighing on materials costs as well. It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't give people a tremendous sense of comfort over the next.
It really doesn't. And again, we've been on a really great ride, and I'm not being pessimistic here because our backlog is still strong. We still have customers that are doing work that is they're very confident it's going to happen in 2023. So this isn't the sky is falling talk. This is just someone who reads a lot and kind of follows some of this stuff, and I don't know how it can continue at such a white hot pace that it has, even since COVID was a blip. Call it 12 to 14 weeks within Massachusetts, Eastern Massachusetts. Once we got back to work, we went screaming off again. And I just feel like specifically with the inflation as well as the interest rate rising, everyone's kind of backing off just a little bit on their developments. Not that they don't want to do them, but it just costs more to do them, and maybe pro formas don't work as well.
Yeah, and again, we were chatting about this the other day, but on I guess I don't even know if I want to say the bright side, but at least for I guess in the short term, I was chatting with someone who's on the procurement side of one of the largest GCs in the country, and he was saying Q1 of 2023 is just shaping up to be an absolute monster like nothing they've seen before from the amount of work.
Revenue wise?
Yeah, well, work that's going to go in place and products that they need to procure.
Sure. And that's what I said. Like the backlog, especially here at Gaston, it's as strong as we've ever had it. So again, I'm not saying there is a lot of work out there. There is a lot of work in Eastern Massachusetts. Again, I'm just giving you the facts that pricing is going up. Lead times have risen to levels that we've never seen before. And when you asked if they're going to stabilize, I talked about pricing. I'll go back to lead times now. The answer is we think, but when you're waiting 70 to 90 weeks for a product, like I can't tell you if that's going to get worse until it's 70 weeks out, right? So we're just getting lead times that far out. We haven't gotten there. So talk to me at the end of 23 And I could tell you, yeah, they held their lead time of 80 weeks, right?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know yet.
Those numbers are staggering. And like, just for sport, I looked back on those old sheets we did
Sure.
years ago, and I think the highest number on there was 20 weeks.
Yeah.
And that was like an outlier. The fact that I'm looking down your sheet right now, and I'm looking at 92 weeks, 100 weeks. I mean, waiting 2 years for a piece of equipment is just staggering. And I guess to your point about you don't see things slowing down, and it's like, yes, the train's moving at a really fast speed right now, and that's great. But this all is a bunch more weight that we're putting on this train, which are going to be a drag on it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I agree to that. Or honestly, we just get better at planning, right? And we really plan some things. We get creative. We've done that on a couple projects where, hey, we can't get that switchboard for you for 70 weeks, but we can do X, Y, and Z and do it in 40, right? So, there are things that we can do to get creative. Your mechanical subcontracting world is doing the same thing on their end, right? Because they're having similar issues as we are. Yeah, I mean, it's just plan, get ahead, be honest with your customers and your developers and say, hey, look, we want to build this. If we buy it now, we can lock it in and we can really start the project, in 6 months. We can't start tomorrow, but in 6 months we can start. And even though this lead time is really great, we've already procured that piece of equipment and it'll still come when we need it when we start in 6 months. Does that make sense? So there are ways to mitigate the lead time constraints that we're up against, for sure. You just got to be smart about it. You got to have patience and a little bit more time, obviously, to do your work. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm dealing with a job now, and I won't name it, but generally we're asking, what can we pay you? Like, how many more millions can we pay you to get this quicker? And we almost got laughed at by the factory saying, there's no money you can offer us to make this go any quicker. And that's never been the case. I mean, when I'm old enough to remember, in the year 1999, when everything was going to go to hell on December 31st, and everybody wanted everything done, before New Year's happened, and people were paying astronomical amounts to get things quicker, and it worked. And now you can't do that. So dating myself, but that's that was the very beginning of what I remember about the business.
Yeah,
but you could pay things, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it is frightening because everybody always says, well, there's always a price, but we're even breaking that age old.
When the price tags are 7 million, but you have Amazon's worth 7 figures, but you have Amazon's and Facebook's offering 8 and 10 9 figures, maybe their pricing actually matters and ours doesn't. Who knows?
Yeah. So, all right, well, I want to be respectful of your time, Mike. I
appreciate that.
Real quick from me, but just so folks know, what frequency do you plan on? Did we chat?
Yeah, we're gonna. So this is first week of November, roughly. We're getting this thing out now, and then we'll probably do this again quarterly. So I would guess February would be our next edition. And obviously, if there's some substantial changes between now and then, we'll hit it. And if anyone has any comments on it, my email is on there. So shoot me a note. You'll also find a download of it on your website, I believe, Joe. You're going to post it.
Yep, I'll post it on the website. I'm going to send it out in that email. So if folks go sign up for that email, it'll go out quarterly. You'll get it in your inbox.
And GastonElectrical.com. I'll throw my plug in there too. I'm sure we'll have it posted there.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Mike will have it up on his website as well. So that's where you can head to find all that information. I think it's valuable. Having seen it, I know it's valuable. Sure. So sign up and head to Gaston's website. You can see it there as well. And I think that's about it.
Joe, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. All right. Take care, Mike.
Talk soon.